So I just want to welcome everybody to the webinar today. My name is Elena Ashley. I am the founder and CEO of Ashley Consulting and Training, as well as our training brand, ashleytrainingonline.com, which is why we're here today, of course. We provide professional services and training in the areas of people and process, IT, and business management. So you're getting a flavor for some of the types of trainings that we offer in the area of process and business management today with Kris. From a consulting perspective, we focus on all things data. So analytics, security, data privacy. We're excited to be launching a new IoT training, which is the Internet of Things practitioner certification. And that should start in about September. We're offering that through our partnership with CertNexus. And then, of course, on our platform, our ashleytrainingonline.com platform, we also currently offer the only European Union recognized data protection officer training and certification. And that's through our partnership with the IAPP. So we have a lot of unique things on our platform. We host over 500 classes. We have 20 plus trainers that offer those classes. Our classes we like to think of ourselves as a social learning platform. So we like to bring people together to learn from each other. We offer classes in the way of instructor-led training, similar to the webinar we're doing today, just in a longer format, kind of a workshop style online. And then we also have a self-study platform where we have hundreds of courses that you can take, on your own time. Study as you go, as you have time. Some things are technical in nature, or I should say productivity in nature, like Office products, Microsoft products. Other things are, EQ related, or emotional intelligence, career development, developing yourself as a leader. All those kinds of things can also be found on the self-teach platform as well. So lots going on at ashleytrainingonline.com. And before we get started with today's webinar, I'd like to give a quick shout out to the Women's Business Center and California Capital for co-sponsoring our webinar today. We're proud to be one of their training partners, offering all kinds of things from, obviously business development like we're doing today, to sales and marketing classes, to entrepreneurship 101, kicking your business off. We have several different offerings that we provide for entrepreneurs through the Women's Business Center. And recently we were picked up by SBA as well, so it sounds like we'll be kind of going national anytime soon now. I wanted to take a moment to introduce you to Dr. Kris Lea as our speaker today. She is, well, let me just put it this way. She's going to introduce herself and give you the lowdown on her, but I'm going to tell you what I know about her so far. She's an amazing change management consultant. She's dedicated her educational and career to understanding organizational development and managing change in organizations. So today we're very lucky to have her here to talk about organizational development, and as it relates as well to small businesses trying to grow and trying to manage their talent pool. All of those things are things that Kris is going to talk about today. She recently received her doctorate in organizational psychology from Alliant International University in Fresno. So her dissertation basically was healthy organization, right? What does it take to be a healthy organization? And she's now starting up her own consulting practice. So she is an independent consultant. And the new consulting practice is called the Self-Healing Organization. So we're very excited to have Kris with us here today. Miss Organization, that's what I like to call you. So Dr. Kris, please and thank you for joining us today, and introduce yourself now. Give your piece of the pie to this conversation.
Oh, thank you, Elena. So yes, all of those things you said are accurate about my background, my educational background, and my professional background. I spent a lot of time on IT-related projects and do organizational change management on IT projects, which is a field of practice. It's related to organization development, but it's very specific to project work. And I would say it's taking the big picture of the practice of OD, understanding that, and then taking that into a project and aligning it with the project's work plan. So you have a little bit more, I'll say, time constraints and project cost constraints. The typical constraints of projects, you have that as you do the work of organizational change management, which is really about the people side of change. So,
awesome. Well, you know, Kris, before we start with the webinar, I just wanted to take care of some housekeeping items. I know that you're ready to launch into your PowerPoint, so I'm going to turn off my sharing in just a second, and you're going to be able to bring up your PowerPoint. One thing I do want to just mention is I will be managing the chat box, so if there's any questions that come up during your conversation, as opposed to interrupting you, what I'm going to do is hold those off until you're finished with your presentation, or until you indicate that you're ready to take some questions. And then at about 1:45, thereabouts, maybe 22, we'll open up the lines for questions that people might have related to the topic. And then after that, we will talk about some more things training related. So I think at this point, I'm ready to stop my share and let you go ahead and start your share.
Okay, all right. Let me click over here and share.
So any questions, just shoot them into the chat box, and I'll be happy to let Kris address them in a little bit.
There we go. All right. The slide I have right now is called Learning Objectives. Is everyone seeing that okay?
Yep.
Good, good. So, this is our agenda. It's the topics of our conversation today, and I'm really hoping it's going to be a lot of conversation. Feel free to jump in with questions on the chat feature. Anything toward the end, we'll have some time for conversation. But I wanted to start with asking a question for everybody out there in terms of anything that, so the topic of today's webinar is organization development as it relates to small businesses and growth when it comes to talent management or really human resources. So the question I have to get us started is for any just general questions about OD or talent management, or any particular pain points that if you're a small business, if you already have a question in mind about something that's happening with your situation, go ahead and drop that into the chat feature, and then Elena, let me know if there's something there for us to quickly touch on.
Absolutely. And by the way, I do have a few for you.
Okay. So why don't you throw them out there? Just a couple of quick pain points. What are some pain points for small businesses with regards to talent management, getting the right people into the right spots?
So my question in general is how to find people. There's a lot of services out there. There's a lot of job boards out there. There's a lot of all that kind of stuff. A lot of them charge fairly hefty commissions to find you the right person. Mm-hmm. And of course, then there's the whole, search Craigslist or post an ad on Craigslist. I mean, there's a lot of different methods, but what is your suggestion for the best way for small businesses to find the right people to fill positions within their company? What would be your off-the-cuff thing that you think is the best path to start with?
Well, LinkedIn is excellent, and I've seen some really creative ways that people are looking for people using LinkedIn. I haven't used Facebook, but I think social media applications are probably the lowest cost. Mm-hmm. But along with that, I think you really have to know what you're looking for and to describe that really well in your advertisement so that the right people apply.
Right. That was my experience with LinkedIn. I placed a job ad on LinkedIn for an intern for sales and marketing, because right now that's what I'm looking for as a sales and marketing person. And unfortunately, they don't have a way for you to constrain the where for where people would be applying from. So of course I had people applying nationally. And so that was a little problematic. Just in terms of not wanting to, you know, engage with somebody that's, say, in New York for a business in Sacramento, right? Because I am trying to, you know, build out the practice in my local area first, even though ashleytrainingonline.com is obviously a international platform. It needs to have its local organic growth, right? So that was one of the things I found with LinkedIn was, you know, I had some trickiness around, you know, the types of locations that people were responding to the ad on. But otherwise, I absolutely agree with you. It's a really good way to connect with people for possible jobs, for sure.
Yeah, and for anyone else who's on the call, I know Antoinette has a really strong HR background, so she might have some ideas for us too.
Yeah, the first thing that came to mind for me was LinkedIn as well. And I strongly agree with being very clear on what you're looking for, the skills and the qualities. So when you are screening candidates, you can do that very quickly.
Right. Yeah, one of the things I noticed, I was watching a lot of the ads. I'm always one of those people that learns from others. That's the way I learn. And so I watch ads very closely. And it's amazing how some of these ads really are just asking for the world. And then they pay like $12 an hour. I thought that was rather interesting. So, so that's the other, I think, catch to, you know, really articulating what your most important things are, as opposed to just throwing in the kitchen sink.
Sure. I think a well-written job description, and I'll say additionally the expectations, so the right people apply, and you don't have to weed through a lot of extra stuff, because I do think hiring managers at all levels, all types of organizations are overwhelmed with the hiring process. Yeah. Because we just got flooded with resumes. Yeah. So, yeah, good, thank you. All right, so I'm going to jump in, and this is really our agenda. We're going to cover a couple of definitions. What is organization development? What's talent management? What is sort of the intersection of the two? And why do you care? Why does this matter to anybody that's on the call today? And then toward the end, we're going to just cover some basics, I'll say practical steps for small business talent management. And then, of course, questions throughout, comments through the chat feature throughout, please. All right, so I'm going to move ahead, and I like the way this transition moves, Elena. The definition of organization development, we get this a lot because it's a field of practice that is not completely understood by I'll say the world at large, and even sometimes within the practitioner community, people argue about what the definition is. This definition that I have in front of you is from one of the founding fathers of organization development, Richard Beckhart, and he's written a lot. He's passed, but we use this as a good, I'll say a baseline definition. Organization development is an effort that's planned. It's for the entire organization. It's managed from the top, which we understand that we need leadership. It's meant to increase organizational effectiveness and health. And they're planned what we call interventions and processes using behavioral science knowledge, which has to do with sociology, anthropology, psychology. So we have some sense of what make human beings tick, and that's part of the definition. Now, my definition is a little different and simpler. I like this one because it's easy to say. I think that organization development practitioners, we really help organizations to be more effective, more productive, and happier places to be. And I stand by this because I think these categories of work, effectiveness, productivity, and happier places to be, this actually covers a wide variety of things that when we think about how organizations are actually operating and people within them. So this is my definition of organization development.
I like it.
Thank you. And this next slide, it's some basic, I'll say this is basic business understanding. And I use this in a lot of my classes with state supervisors who are new managers. And I think this is a really good concept to have. Well, I think we probably all have it in the back of our mind, but sometimes we pull it to the front of our mind again. So all managers need to do certain things to be a manager, and especially for small businesses, we're managers of our own business. So what Henri Fayol, who was a theorist a long time ago, his list of management functions used to be very, very long. This has been adapted. And what he's saying is that managers have to do these things. And first, you have to plan. And planning is the what. So if you're a small business owner and you're thinking about who do I need to help me to grow my business, you really have to have a good mission, vision, and strategic objectives, which are sort of the foundation of what you then will take to the next step, which is to write some job descriptions. But you really have to do some strong, good planning so you know exactly where you're going to take your organization. And then the next arrow that is highlighted, so these two green arrows really are what we're thinking about today, is the organization, which is who's going to do the work. And we also call that talent management nowadays. So talent management is who's actually going to do the work that needs to be done in the organization. This is true whether you're sustaining your organization or you're growing your organization. I think it's equally important no matter what the status is, sustaining or growing. You still have to do really good planning, and you really have to organize to understand the staff and the kind of talent that you need to bring in to help you. So these two parts, planning and organizing, two very important parts of this overall big picture from Henri Fayol in terms of basic management functions. There's also leading, there's also controlling, which is to monitor the progress of your organization, to keep track of things. And then of course, smack dab in the middle, I should probably change this diamond to a heart, which is the shape of communication, which is to communicate, which is so very important especially when we're maybe the first person in our own organization. If we're a business owner, we're going to have to do a lot of communicating with different types of people. So these are the basics, and we're going to focus on planning and organizing. That's really how it aligns to the topic for today. And another reason I think this is really important is if you are a small business owner and you are trying to grow your business, you really do need to plan and optimize systems that will help you to be more efficient. So this diagram is saying if you're a small business, you probably have 1 to 99 employees. Maybe you're the only person right now. But if you're trying to grow, you still have to do all these steps in terms of planning, organizing, and if you're growing into a mid-sized business, you're really going to have to take a look at systems that will help you, right? Because we can't do it all by ourselves. We want to optimize, and we want to make sure that we're efficient, and we use either outsourcing resources, whether they're human resources, we outsource something to another firm, or we implement systems within our own environment that really helps. So that's really why I think it's so important to do really good planning and to think ahead as we take our business to the next level, which is really growing to a mid-sized business, to have more employees. It depends on what your long-term goals are, but there's a little bit of an assumption here that we're all trying to grow our business, even if it's to this upper limit of being a small business. All right, and now we talk a little bit about talent management. What is talent management? And it's really about the anticipated needs that are required from a human capital perspective to meet the needs of your organization. So if you, just for example, if you're starting your own CPA firm, if you're going to grow, then you would be looking for people that were licensed CPAs, for example. And then maybe you need IT systems, maybe you need an office, you're going to do marketing. All of those things, as you actually plan out your business, you start to think about the who is going to do the work, and that's really what talent management is. And you can do it simply, or as you grow, you might want to have a system that would help you with that. All right, so I want to pause. Elena, do we have any questions in the chat so far? Are we good? I think we're good for now, huh?
Sorry about that. I had to get myself off of mute. Yeah, no questions so far.
Okay. All right. So this is just a little picture, which I was thinking, what's important about these two topics, organization development and talent management? I think they're very closely related, and organization development might be a broader set of activities for an organization, but talent management is a very specific part of making sure that you have the right people in the right roles. And as we talk about, sometimes we talk about workforce planning, which is a related term. And I think of it as having the right people in the right roles at the right time. And that's really going to help you to run your business, right? You might have the right people, but maybe they're not there at the right time, or maybe they're not in the right roles. So talent management is really getting those three rights in place. And I think overall that it takes us back to the definition of making organizations more efficient, productive, and happier places to work. Certainly as a business owner, you're going to be happier if you have the right people in the right roles at the right time. And this list, we're going to go through here and talk about each one, and I just encourage everybody to ask questions if there's something that comes up, or if there's maybe an idea to add to this that's completely open. So first is planning. We've talked about this a little bit already. Really thinking about the skills that are needed to sustain or to grow your organization. One thing I have seen in consulting work is that there are times that people end up getting into the wrong role. And we call it a person job fit. And there's sometimes maybe they start out in the right role, but as the organization evolves, that eventually that person potentially gets into a role that really isn't suited for them. So I think that there's an ongoing planning need to make sure that the right people are in the right roles. Even if things they started out as an individual contributor, but eventually become a manager. This is a transition for a person, and they may need some additional coaching or support to be in their new role. So there's a lot of planning that needs to go into getting the right people into the right roles at the right time. So job descriptions. We talked about this a little bit in the beginning. Job descriptions are extremely important about what needs to be done, what kind of attributes you want from a given person to perform the role of the job that you need, the work that needs to be done. And I think, and Elena, your example earlier, I think it would be fair to say this would be a local Sacramento responsibility. Maybe it's part-time, someone that would need to be, close by and willing to work part-time, for example.
Yep.
Eliminates the people who are in Europe that might want to do like maybe.
I've had those too. Europe, New York, yeah. The Philippines, yeah, you name it. I got responses.
Yeah. Well, but we're living in such an international world where people can do work remotely. So, potentially if they're not sure that it's not a remote oriented position, that they could make an assumption, right? So it's just as clear as we can be, the better off, the better we are in terms of people who actually apply.
And actually, that's an interesting point that came to mind, Kris, is that it is true. It could absolutely be a remote position from anywhere in the world. That's really about the organizational leadership and whether or not they can work with somebody that is on the other side of the world, right? I mean, there's a certain component of what is the company ready to do. For example, I have a consulting company that works with another consulting company out of Atlanta. and they have a very hard time working with remote employees. So they tend to leave all of their business very local, where they can go to their customers, their employees come into the office, and they're happy with that ecosystem of very close by. So a lot of times it's not even whether or not the job could be possibly remote. It's really more a matter of, can the company accommodate and work with and integrate somebody into their processes that is in a remote location.
Yeah, that's a great point. I worked with a virtual assistant when I was working on my dissertation, and I hired her to develop some surveys for me, and she did a pretty good job. The only thing is that there were some, I'll say she didn't fully test the surveys before she sent them over to me. And so I realized working with her that I needed to give her more information about what I expected from her. I wanted her to take the time to actually test out and do a QA process on her own work before she sent it over to me. So I think that setting expectations for remote workers can be a little challenging, but it's necessary.
Absolutely.
Yep. So good. Thank you for that. It made me think of my experience of hiring my virtual assistant.
I need one of those.
So the next step about developing a hiring process, I think this could evolve over time, but the onboarding process for new employees or anyone, even if you're doing some exchange work with someone, because there's different kind of working arrangements these days, but I still think a good solid checklist about what information a new person needs from you to be able to engage with you could be integrated into the overall hiring process, even if it's something fairly simple. As the situation evolves in terms of if you brought someone into your store, your office, what do they need in terms of equipment, accounts, all of those kinds of things, training, all of that goes into a good hiring process. And it may be more important to the new employee than it is to you, but I do know that when you're a new employee, if you experience a really good hiring process, you're welcome, your space is ready, your equipment is ready, you know what training you need, you've got a mentor, all of these things are in place, you feel secure in your decision to come to that firm. So I think there's positives on both sides of having a really good hiring process. And that's related to the onboarding process. And I think those things are very closely coupled together. So on number 5, outcomes-based performance standards, this may be more appropriate as your small business grows, but I do think that it's helpful for you as a small business owner to think about what kinds of standards do you want in terms of output of work, and maybe standards of, customer engagement, those kinds of things, because this actually then feeds back into your hiring, onboarding process, training activities, those kinds of things. So really think about what are the measurements of quality that you expect everyone in your firm to be exhibiting and to be able to know how to do, which may mean that you've got some training to do yourself as people come on board. But thinking about what would be performance standards helps you to be really clear when managing people. And 6, which is a complement to number 5, which is a coaching culture. I think a coaching culture really does help. And when I say this, I mean that a coaching culture is where maybe managers or even peers are helping each other with an ongoing learning environment and a lot of cross-training and mentoring for everyone. So there's an assumption here, which is everyone has something to learn, and we can all share knowledge without risking credibility or status. And that becomes important. And I think creating a coaching culture is really a good place to start for new businesses. And I put a sub bullet here, and I said the golden rule, and this is true, small business, large business, I don't think it matters, but try to not ever have only one person that knows how to do something. Now, I don't know if this has anyone experienced where the one person who knows how to do a very, very special task, then they're sick or on a long vacation or they leave. You're in a world of hurt if that happens or when that happens. So the golden rule is to cross-train, right? Have more than one person to know how to do a specialized task. And I'm saying something that maybe you don't know how to do very well yourself. Maybe you could learn it, but if it's specialized and it needs to be done quickly, you want to make sure that more than one person knows.
Yeah, job security, you know?
Yeah.
That's how some people look at that, right? If I'm the only person who knows how to do this convoluted process that I started so that I could make sure that, you know, this gets done my way and then I will have job security. That's a challenge I've come across in many organizations.
Right. It's pervasive. It's pervasive because it goes along with that expression that we like to use, knowledge is power. And I think some people take that to an extreme level, which is they have knowledge and they don't want to share it with anyone else when they really need to. And as leading an organization, you want to make sure that you mitigate that risk. So, because I consider having a single person with a specialized task a risk to the organization.
Single point of failure as well. Yep.
Yep. I think developing compensation structures and incentives that matter to people. So number 7, I think this is really important. I believe in paying people well. I've always, even when people are working with me, I've had a lot of people working, just doing some side, like small jobs for me as I'm starting my own business, to compensate them well and to make sure that they get paid and to do some spot incentives. I find that just random incentives and you know, little gift cards, little Amazon gift cards actually make a lot of difference to people. It really helps to show your appreciation. So I think this is part of it, is compensation and incentives that really do matter to them, whatever that is. Sometimes people are more motivated by public recognition. Sometimes an Amazon gift card does a lot of good. So
that's actually an interesting topic in of itself. Just what are some of the incentives that one could offer? Because you're right, people are motivated by different things. So right. I think that is probing into that a little bit when you bring on employees to understand who they are and what makes them tick will help you come up with good incentives.
Yeah, I read a really good book recently. It's called The 5 Languages of Appreciation at Work. And it follows the structure of the 5 love languages, which is really kind of amazing. And it's a great crossover of concept from the 5 love languages to the 5 appreciation languages at work. And it's a good book to read.
Awesome.
And step 8 is to provide leadership opportunities to others, which is to delegate. One of the most difficult things that we have as small business owners is to delegate, because it's, you know, we have a lot of it is in our head, but to be able to cross-train and help other people to be able to support us long-term, they need to be able to have opportunities to try something new and sometimes to fail. So you have to be able to have some wiggle room for someone who's learning something in terms of taking on some more responsibilities working with you. So delegating is actually one of the most difficult things that new managers have. I found that to be the #1 area of skill development in brand new managers that I work with on a regular basis. So I think this applies to all of us as small business owners. And then finally, we don't want people to leave, but if and when they do leave, either hold an exit interview yourself or have someone else do it for you. If you've got an HR firm, try to get a situation where you can truly learn about why people are leaving, not just the standard answers that people give. So that means that creating a psychologically safe place to exit the organization is going to get you back the best information about things that why people are leaving, improvements that you might be able to make in your own organization. It's all part of the cycle of organizational life. People, you hire them and then sometimes they leave on their own, sometimes you have to manage out, but exit interviews are really, really important. And if people who are leaving, if they are not comfortable to talk to you directly, then have someone else that they would trust to be able to talk to. And I think this really gets you some excellent information. So those are some basic steps for small business leaders, which I really think are good for all managers to have. But as we're growing our business, to really think through and think through what we need from people to be able to help us to either sustain or grow our business, and to be very specific and to help them as much as we can to help us. And I'd say there's a tremendous investment in time that we place in other people so that they can help us to be more productive ourselves. So we've got the final slide, which is some considerations. And this is, I think, and Antoinette, I wouldn't mind if you jumped in here with anything. This is what I know about. There's the decision point when a company is growing about when do you need a formal HR function, and would you bring them in-house, basically set up an HR function within your own business, or would you outsource this? And I've always heard and read it's around 100 employees that you really have to make a good decision around having a full HR function. Antoinette, would you mind jumping in on that and just?
Sure. The last company I worked with had about 100 employees, and I was the HR person, and then I had a assistant that helped me. So really, I would say it was probably 1.5, okay. And that was very manageable. I think it depends on the culture and the goals of the organization and where they are in their life cycle. Yes. So, when you're first getting started and putting things in place, I think a one person could get things set up. When you're starting to implement new projects, you're, embracing a new business model, and there's a need for more hiring or training, then maybe you make the decision, is this a temporary need or is this a long-term need? And, temporary, of course, could be outsourced. Long-term, maybe you're starting to develop your staff. And then also thinking about succession planning. So the HR folks that are there, how long are they going to be there, and what kind of training do you need to be providing for, when that person leaves? So I think, unfortunately, in my opinion, the answer is it depends on the life cycle, the current staff, the capabilities, and then the volume. If it's a really busy pace, really ever-changing environment, I think you're going to need more HR to support managers that are going through the growing pains, versus if you're stable, you may not need that additional support.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. That you are on target. And I think it takes us back to really doing some good strategic planning to understand what our goals are for the organization. And in your case, you're a generalist. Is that correct, Antoinette?
Yes, I was the director of HR for my last company. So yeah, I did it all. So I would put myself in the generalist role.
Yeah. So to have an HR generalist as you grow, I think would be helpful. And then that person would be able to advise a small business owner about based on the strategy, what else is needed from an HR perspective. And I think you have to be prepared to have either more staff or to outsource some of the functions, HR functions.
Mm-hmm. And also I think another point, and this goes back to when you were talking about the hiring process, the more organized and strategic you are in the beginning. You know, I think with the hiring process, you can set the expectations of performance management during the interview process.
Yes.
So the more you're doing up front and the more proactive and organized you are initially, I think that then allows you to be more streamlined in the HR function moving forward until, you know, the life cycle changes and bigger projects arise. But so that would be efficiency. You know, the more efficient you are, obviously, the more lean you can be.
Right, right. I have experienced working with some family-owned businesses, a small consulting firm, and the woman that owned it, she was excellent. But I think the difficulty that she had was that her daughters and granddaughters all were doing different roles, and I don't know if they were exactly suited for those roles.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of they struggled with that, and I hope, I haven't talked to them in a little while, but I think they would probably could go back to a strategy planning session, and then maybe realign people to different roles that are a little bit more suited. But I think it's one of the things that happen with small businesses, or even just family businesses, that the people are just filling a spot for the time being. But I think you need more structure around it to really grow the organization.
Yep.
And I also think that good HR systems, talent management systems, are really worthwhile. And I put a little definition in here. Talent management system has talent management, recruitment, performance management, and compensation management, and you can have learning and development in there. So there are different systems that I think really can help organizations. There's a lot of different modules, and I've got a resource in the slides here. But I think when you are going to invest back into your firm, that a good human resource system or talent management system is worthwhile to really help you to align your systems to your own strategy. So I think that that's something to think about as a business grows, is to have a good system in place. And just a couple of resources for all of you. There's links here, and I think, Elena, we're going to send out this slide deck. Is that correct? So people can click on the links and get to these resources?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's some good stuff here. This is just a smidgen of a really much bigger topic, but I hope you've got something out of this today, and just really think about, you know, planning the work of your organization, whether to sustain or grow, and then to get the right people into the right roles at the right time. That's really going to help us the most.
Absolutely. And I think the other, you know, resource that's really important in all of this is connecting with others so that you can find those HR folks. Because I can tell you that if I waited, just knowing myself as a manager, if I waited until I had 100 employees to get an HR person on staff, I'd be dead.
Right. I
would have died 50 employees ago. So I think that, you know, your point to getting the right people at the right time in the right position is really key. And not waiting until, you know, you're overwhelmed. There are lots of HR consultants out there that can take on work, even if they're not a full-time employee. They're just helping you, say, for example, with onboarding people, or handling all of the initial calls for, you know, when you put a resume out there. I mean, as a small business owner, when I put a resume out there, I'm inundated. I mean, it takes me days just to read through them, right? And so I haven't gone through the process yet ever of posting on a job board, and that's why I don't do it, because I am terrified of the number of responses I would get to the job ad. And so, you know, hiring an HR consultant, even just before you're at the position where you need a full-time or a time and a, you know, 1+1 or 1+1 employees specifically dedicated to HR, there's a time well before that. For example, with a lot of small businesses, you need things like NDAs, onboarding paperwork, and HR payroll kind of systems, and all of those types of systems need to be in place before you start bringing on employees. And so I think that, you know, bringing on a consultant sometimes can be really helpful, even if you don't, if you aren't at that place where you need a full-time HR person, you certainly probably need help, you know, along the journey.
Yes, yes. No, I think that's a great point. The full HR function would be a set of generalists and maybe some specialized area workman's comp, HR legal, maybe some things like that.
Benefits, things like that.
As you grow, definitely. But before that, yes, it's part of the planning process. Is what do you need from an HR perspective? Even if you hired a consultant in the beginning as you get started, just to take a look at your strategy and ask, you know, what do you need to be able to really fulfill this strategy?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I think that's worth, you know, exploring for the small business owners out there that are, you know, looking to grow and really kind of struggling with how do I grow with people in the right way? I think an HR consultant is a really good way to go. I really am a proponent of bringing in, as you said, the right people at the right time for the right reason. So, so that would be my takeaway from the whole thing.
Yes.
Awesome. So now before we run out of time, we're at about 10:02 right now. We've had a good conversation. What I wanted to do was just find out if there are any questions out there. If there are any comments from people that they may want to chime in. We haven't gotten additional chime-ins yet, so I just want to see if there's any questions out there for starters. I'm going to open that up. Let's see. Okay, and Antoinette, I can't unmute you either. I think you probably muted yourself, so my system's not letting me unmute you. So there we go.
I just the call, so I'm trying extra sensitive now.
Yeah, she's on the move now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you?
Okay, no problem. Any questions though? Did you have anything that you wanted to get clarification on or offer suggestions on?
I guess I would just want to ask, this topic has been geared specifically to small businesses. What would you say are the major differences between what we've talked about today for small businesses versus large businesses? Because I thought, you know, there's a lot of great information here that I think corresponds to any type of business. Yeah,
I would agree.
The one thing I think is the financial resources would be different. If you're small and you're sort of bootstrapping yourself, maybe you're doing more on your own to get things going. As you're larger and you have more funds, I think you can have a full HR function to help with these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But that's my initial reaction, Antoinette, about what would be the main difference. I think it's the financial resources that you might have as a small business owner to be able to do some of these things.
Yeah, but I think the concepts are all very important and applicable to any size organization that you're with.
Yep. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you see that. I do too. I mean, planning and organizing, it's the two biggest things. That you have to know what you need, so that you can then describe it to other people so that they can help you.
Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, good. I'm glad that we had a chance to go through that. And to have that conversation, because I think that, you know, this is very helpful. I'm glad I recorded the session because I think there's a lot of small business owners out there who will listen in after the fact and go, wow, I didn't think about that. And that's one of the things that I find as a small business owner, even as I grow, I learn things every day about what I didn't know the day before. So there's always a growth curve, no matter where you are in the process, whether you're going from, you know, 1 to 10 employees or 10 to 25 employees or 25 to 100 employees. There's always, you know, some growth bumps in the road along the way that you really have to think about and plan for. So what I wanted to do at this point was just take us back to the platform for a minute. Do you want to unshare your PowerPoint for a minute?
There we go.
Kris, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to just jump us back to your page, provided I can get it to work. Ah, there we go. Okay, took me a minute. So hopefully you're seeing my screen right now that has a beautiful picture of Miss Kris on it. This is the page that you use to initially register for this class today. However, if you go down a little bit further, you will notice there's a spot right here for reviews. Just scrolling down a little bit more, you can give it a star rating and you can put in your comments, and we would really appreciate it if you would take the time to do that for us, because obviously partnering with some of the kinds of organizations we partner with, they always are interested in finding out, you know, what the feedback is like. So on here are some related courses that kind of go along with some of the things that we've been talking about today. So one of them is obviously developing that high reliability organization. That one is really, I think, around this concept of organizational development. That is really, you know, building out your talent and making sure you have the right people for the right job at the right time. That's really what that particular course is about. You can take it through the online program right now. That's the only way it's set up. And I'm sure in the future we will offer it as a live webinar workshop, just like we do some of our other ones. We also have creating your top-notch talent management program. So that really kind of correlates with what we were talking about today. But what I would like to do is offer a code out to everybody that watches this webinar and who has participated today. You can put in the code Dr. Kris 99, so Dr. Kris with a K 99, and that will give you a $99 discount at the time you check out. So you can take any course on the platform, doesn't have to be these ones, but if you're needing more information about any of these classes, or you have any questions, or you want to take them self-study, those are that code will work for self-study or ILT. Also, I believe Kris is going to be offering in September a change management course on the platform, and that's going to be a workshop style. So we're going to be sending out more information to our participants and our registrants for the class today regarding that change management class as well. And it sounds like we might need to get you on the developing a high reliability organization too, Kris.
That one looks, I like the topic.
Yeah, I put you on the spot there, sorry.
But this code Dr. Kris 99, that's kind of cool and sleek.
I liked it too, yeah. So Dr. Kris 99 will get you a $99 discount to any of the courses online. So, and also to her change management one, which you will notice we will send out an email for the registration. So that will be good for that one as well. All right. Okay, so don't forget to put up your review. I'd like to thank you for joining us today, and I wish everybody have a wonderful rest of their day and a great week.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kris, for joining us today.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.